In a world where everything moves fast and gets thrown away even faster, there's something quietly radical about slowing down and building beauty from what others discard. This isn't just a garden, it's a story of revival, of patience, and of resourcefulness. Welcome to your rustic garden oasis, not made from fancy catalogs or pristine materials, but from the forgotten, the weathered, and the well-used. Each corner, each object, each texture speaks of history and purpose. This kind of garden doesn't demand perfection. It invites character. That chipped enamel? A detail. That rusted edge? A patina. These aren't flaws, they're fingerprints of time, and they're what give the space its soul. Recycled materials don't just reduce waste. They challenge you to see differently. An old door becomes a trellis. A cracked sink becomes a planter. A pile of bricks becomes a path. What once was trash becomes treasure. In this video, we're walking through a series of humble items transformed with creativity and care. Each one helps shape a space that's not only beautiful, but deeply personal. You don't need a massive budget to build a sanctuary. Just time, vision, and a willingness to get your hands dirty. Nature doesn't care about perfection. It just wants to grow. So take a breath, slow down, and imagine a garden where the past is welcome, the present is peaceful, and the future grows wild. Let's begin. Old wooden pallets are the foundation of almost any rustic DIY garden project. These weathered wood frames are often free or cheap, and with just a little creativity, they can be transformed into something both functional and beautiful. One of the easiest ways to repurpose pallets is by turning them into a vertical garden. Just stand one upright against a wall or fence, tuck in small pots or secure mason jars filled with herbs, and you've got a stunning feature that saves space and elevates your garden's texture. Even in a tight urban corner, this setup brings that lived-in, earthy charm with a sense of vertical drama. Another favorite use is crafting raised beds. Stack pallets to form borders, line the bottom with garden fabric or recycled burlap, and fill them with nutrient-rich soil. The slatted wood gives a raw, unfinished aesthetic that feels intentional, perfect for a garden that embraces imperfection and natural beauty. Pallets also make for incredibly cozy seating. With just 2 or 3 pieces, you can create a bench or lounger. Add some reclaimed foam cushions, a woven throw, maybe a few soft pillows, and you've got an inviting nook to relax among the greenery. This makes the garden feel like an extension of your living space. A true oasis, not just a planting zone. Beyond function, pallets add visual warmth and narrative. Their nail holes, chipped corners, and uneven coloring all tell a story. They've been handled, used, and weathered, and in your garden they become part of a new cycle of life. Incorporate them into fencing, coffee tables, or even as shelves for garden tools and clay pots. Mason jars are the unsung heroes of rustic garden design. Small, simple, and endlessly versatile, they bring a handcrafted charm to any outdoor space. Whether you're lighting a path, storing seeds, or planting herbs, mason jars deliver that signature blend of function and nostalgia. One of the most magical ways to use mason jars is for ambient lighting. Fill them with tea lights or solar fairy lights, and hang them from tree branches using twine or vintage wire. As the sun sets, the soft glow through the glass transforms your garden into a warm, enchanted retreat. The mix of flickering light and glass reflections adds an intimate, cinematic mood you simply can't fake. They also make beautiful, practical herb planters. Mounted on reclaimed wood, each jar can hold soil and a favorite herb like mint, basil, or thyme. Add handwritten labels and you've got a charming vertical herb station. It's compact, easy to water, and adds life to otherwise unused corners of your garden. For your garden pathways, mason jars filled with fairy lights or candles can act as lanterns. Place them along stone steps, nestled in gravel, or even hanging from short shepherd's hooks. This kind of low, glowing light adds depth and atmosphere, especially during early evening hours or cloudy days. They're also ideal for floral centerpieces. Line a rustic garden table with mismatched jars filled with wildflowers, dried stems, or fresh-picked greens. It feels intentional and lived in, exactly what a rustic garden oasis should evoke. Worn-out tires might not scream garden beauty at first glance, but with a little creativity, they can become bold and functional design elements in a rustic oasis. Their circular shape and solid structure make them perfect for upcycling into unique planters, seating, or even play areas. One of the most effective ways to reuse old tires is as raised flower beds. A single tire can hold a full display of blooms like petunias, zinnias, or marigolds. Stack them in 2s or 3s, staggered in height, and paint them in muted clay or sage tones. The result? A blooming tower that brings vertical color and texture to your garden. If you're short on ground space, you can hang tires from tree branches or pergolas to create vertical planters. Line them with coconut fiber or cloth, fill them with trailing plants like ivy or nasturtium, and let gravity do the styling. It's whimsical, unexpected, and adds motion to your garden palette. Tires also make great edging or borders. Line a path or garden bed with half-buried tires, filled with succulents or ground cover like thyme and moss. The soft, curved edges contrast nicely with the roughness of gravel or bark mulch, offering visual softness while still keeping the rustic theme intact. For a more playful or functional touch, consider repurposing a tire into a garden swing. Suspended from a sturdy tree, it brings nostalgic charm and offers a peaceful spot to sit, sway, or reflect. You can even transform larger tires into circular bench seating by arranging them around a fire pit or small table. Tin cans are often tossed away without a second thought, but in a rustic garden, they become tiny canvases for creativity. Their sturdy shape, industrial texture, and compact size make them ideal for all kinds of DIY transformation. The most obvious and rewarding use for tin cans is as planters. After a good wash and a few drainage holes, they're ready to host herbs, succulents, or small flowering plants. Line them up along a bench or mount them on a reclaimed wooden board for a vertical display. Each can bring a slightly different patina, adding to that layered, lived-in charm. The cans in soft matte tones, chalky whites, dusty blues, or sage green can tie them into your garden's palette. Or leave them raw and weathered, letting the metal age naturally. The beauty of rustic design is that imperfection isn't just accepted, it's celebrated. Be turned into functional garden accents. Use them to store twine, plant labels, or hand tools. Mounted to an old barn door or shed wall, they keep your space tidy while doubling as decor. Their metallic finish catches the light and brings contrast to the softer textures of soil and foliage. A simple nail and hammer can punch tiny holes into beautiful patterns. Drop in a tea light or fairy lights, and they cast delicate shadows that dance across your garden in the evening. Hang them from tree branches with twine, and you'll have a glowing canopy that feels both humble and magical. Vintage ladders are one of the most versatile items you can bring into your rustic garden. Their height, shape, and time-worn textures offer both form and function. Whether leaning, standing, or hanging, they provide vertical charm where most gardens stay grounded. One of the easiest transformations is using a ladder as a vertical planter shelf. Just lean it against a wall or fence, then fill the steps with small terracotta pots. Herbs, succulents, or flowering vines all find their place. Each rung becomes a level in a growing tower of life. If you have a double-sided ladder, open it fully and set it on a gravel patio or grassy patch. Use the steps to display your favorite garden accents, stone figurines, watering cans, candles, or seasonal plants. It creates a sculptural focal point that changes with the seasons. Ladders also work beautifully hung horizontally. Secure one to a fence or between two posts, and suddenly you have a hanging rack for lanterns, mason jars, or trailing plants. String some lights across it, and you've got rustic mood lighting that floats overhead. In greenhouses or shaded corners, ladders can double as trellises. Ivy, beans, morning glories, they all naturally reach upward. The ladder's linear frame encourages vertical growth while giving your garden a layered, architectural touch. There's something hauntingly beautiful about old doors and window frames. They come with scratches, dents, and stories. When brought into a garden, they add verticality, nostalgia, and quiet drama. These pieces don't just decorate, they anchor space. A lone weathered door, standing in the middle of a garden bed, invites curiosity. It leads nowhere, and yet, it feels like an entrance to something. Framed by tall flowers or vines, it becomes a portal, symbolic and surreal. A simple gesture that makes your garden feel layered, intentional, and just a bit magical. Window frames can be mounted on fences or walls to serve as trellises. Climbing plants like jasmine, clematis, or morning glory wind through the empty panes, weaving past and present together. The faded wood contrasts with the living green, a perfect balance of stillness and growth. For a more functional piece, try attaching shelves or small containers to an old door. It becomes a vertical garden for herbs, succulents, or even garden tools. The structure offers a backdrop of rustic character, grounding your garden elements like a picture frame around nature's artwork. You can also create a boundary or screen using multiple reclaimed frames. Stack and secure them together to form an artful wall. Some open, some with glass, some overtaken by moss. It filters the view without completely closing it off, creating intimacy without isolation. In a rustic garden, rust isn't something to hide. It's something to honor. Old tools and farm equipment carry years of use, wear, and weather. Their surfaces are marked with labor and time, making them perfect companions for a garden built on texture and story. A rusted shovel leaned against a wall does more than rest. It becomes sculpture. Its aged blade, cracked handle, and faded grip add a raw, industrial edge to the softness of plants. Set it near herbs or along a brick path, and suddenly it's not a leftover, it's a visual anchor. Old wheelbarrows make excellent planters. Rusted metal and wooden handles cradle blooms and foliage with surprising elegance. Fill them with wildflowers, creeping thyme, or even kitchen herbs. Their worn body becomes a mobile flower bed with built-in patina. Even the smallest tools, a hand rake, a pair of shears, a trowel with a splintered handle, can be displayed like artifacts. Mount them on reclaimed wood in your potting shed, or hang them along a garden fence. Their presence is quiet but grounding. They remind us that every garden is shaped by hands. Larger equipment like iron plows or push mowers can become the focal point of a landscaping moment. Nestled among ferns, flanked by stone, or tucked beneath a tree, they act like sculpture. Not flashy but full of soul. They speak of work done, seasons past, and tools laid to rest with respect. Crates and old drawers may look like cast-offs, but in a rustic garden, they're some of the most useful and visually charming elements you can bring in. They offer structure, height, and a sense of grounded practicality, while also carrying a beautifully aged soul. Start simple. Stack 2 or 3 weathered wooden crates and fill them with soil and herbs. Place them near your kitchen door, on a stone patio, or tucked beside a fence. Each crate becomes its own tiny garden room, framed by wood that's soft with age and history. Old drawers are where the fun really starts. Pull them halfway out of an abandoned dresser and plant directly into them. Layer in succulents, moss, or trailing vines, and let them spill over like nature is reclaiming furniture. It's whimsical, it's textural, and it's totally unique. Even on the ground, drawers work beautifully. Line a few up like garden beds, each one with its own variety of flowers. The chipped paint, rusted handles, and dents only make it more charming. It turns planting into a visual rhythm of lines and layers. You can also mount crates on a wall or fence to create a vertical display. Alternate between planting them and using them to hold candles, garden signs, or stones you've collected. It becomes a gallery, not just of plants but of memories and mood. Glass bottles and jars are more than just containers. They're vessels of light, memory, and simple beauty. In a rustic garden, they catch sunlight, hold moments, and bring a touch of delicate contrast to all the wood and soil. Vintage bottles in shades of green, blue, or amber look stunning when grouped together. Set them on a wooden shelf or along a ledge, and let the sun filter through. Each one becomes a prism, scattering warm tones across the garden like little beacons of color and nostalgia. Mason jars are garden classics. Hang them from tree branches with twine or wire, and drop a tea light inside. As the sun sets, they begin to glow soft, golden, and magical. A few flickering lights in the branches turn any evening into something memorable. Glass jars also make beautiful propagators. Suspend them near a fence or wall, and use them to root cuttings. Watching roots form in clear water is surprisingly calming. It's like peeking into the quiet part of the garden's life, the growth that happens before anything blossoms. You can also turn jars into tiny terrariums. Add some pebbles, moss, and a small fern or air plant. Place them on tables, shelves, or inside crates. These small, sealed gardens within the garden add a layer of curiosity, like miniature worlds tucked into corners. There's something beautifully honest about broken terracotta. The cracks, the chipped edges, the faded color. They all tell a story of time, weather, and use. In a rustic garden, nothing is too far gone. Broken pots don't get tossed, they get transformed. One of the simplest ways to reuse broken terracotta is as drainage or mulch. Shard the pieces and spread them around your herb beds or flower roots. They help regulate moisture and keep weeds down, while giving the soil surface a rugged, tactile texture. It's practical and poetic. Larger broken pieces can be leaned or nestled into planters as decorative dividers or support. A fractured pot becomes a canvas for succulents, moss, and creeping vines. Their jagged silhouette draws the eye, creating natural layers in both structure and color. There's also a bit of whimsy in what broken pots can become. Fairy gardens, those tiny magical scenes, come to life inside a shattered pot. Tuck in a little moss, a pebble path, and maybe a miniature bench. Suddenly, your broken container becomes a whole world, inviting guests to lean in and look closer. You can also use broken shards as plant markers. A little paint and a steady hand turns each piece into a label. Basil, thyme, lavender, laid gently into the soil. It's rustic, low waste, and blends into the garden in a way plastic never could. Corrugated metal is raw, imperfect, and deeply honest, which makes it an unexpectedly powerful material in a rustic garden. With its waves and ridges, it catches the light just right. And when it rusts, it becomes even more beautiful. Use corrugated metal sheets to build raised garden beds. The ridged surface contrasts beautifully with soft herbs and foliage. Over time, the metal takes on warm tones of rust and age. It tells a story of weather and use, of a garden that's lived in. You can also use it vertically. A corrugated metal panel becomes a perfect backdrop for trailing vines or a vertical planter. The industrial texture sets off the soft green leaves in a way that feels both grounded and expressive. If you've got leftover roofing, consider mounting it as a feature wall or fence. Add some hanging pots, old garden tools, or vintage signage to bring personality into the space. Suddenly, a plain sheet of metal becomes a rustic art installation. Potting corners framed with metal and wood feel sturdy and rooted. Set against weathered wood and surrounded by terracotta and burlap, the metal offers contrast and structure. It keeps things feeling intentional, not just found but designed. Even a simple fence or border can be upgraded with a bit of corrugated texture. Run it low along a path or bed. Let moss and weeds climb along the bottom edge. The patina of the metal next to green growth feels wild but balanced. There's something unexpectedly poetic about placing an old bathtub or sink in the middle of a garden. It's a contrast of hard and soft, once used for washing and scrubbing, now reimagined for blooming and breathing. Old bathtubs make perfect raised beds. Their deep basins hold soil, roots, and moisture beautifully. Fill them with wildflowers, herbs, or ornamental grasses. The worn enamel and rust stains become part of the look, a story told through texture. Place a clawfoot tub in an open patch of grass. Let the plants spill out like water. Suddenly, a utilitarian object becomes an art piece. It commands attention while still feeling grounded and honest. Sinks work the same way, only smaller. Mount one on a wooden frame or rest it on crates. Fill it with succulents, trailing ivy, or even pebbles and moss. You can make it ornamental or practical. A planter, a bird bath, a water basin for tools. For a touch of wild charm, turn a bathtub into a miniature pond. Add a slow trickle of water, float some lily pads, and surround it with stones or ferns. Let it reflect the sky. It becomes a calm space in the garden, a mirror to everything growing around it. Every garden tells a story, but one built from recycled materials speaks louder than most. It whispers of resourcefulness, of seeing worth where others saw waste, of knowing that beauty doesn't always shine, sometimes it rusts. The old wood, the broken terracotta, the rusted metal, all of it now part of something living, something growing. It's proof that when we care for what already exists, we make space for something new to thrive. There's no single rule, no perfect plan. This kind of garden evolves over time, piece by piece, season by season, and that's what makes it feel real, like it belongs to you, not to a brand. So next time you see a crate on the curb or a bottle tossed aside, stop and imagine. What could this become? How might it bloom again with just a little dirt and love? Until next time, keep planting, keep dreaming, and never stop finding magic in the forgotten.